Millionaire CEO travels with humble assistant, but hotel reservation mix-up creates situation no one imagined. Hello, viewer. Thanks for joining us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. Sarah Adams walked briskly through the sleek glass doors of Reyes Holdings, the bustling Chicago corporate headquarters she had called her professional home for 8 steady years. At 35, she was known among colleagues as the quietly efficient curator of digital archives, a title that made people imagine her as someone forever in the background, meticulous, reliable, but hardly the center of attention. She never minded this assumption, or at least she told herself so. Routine brought comfort, and precision was something Sarah excelled at. Yet, that morning felt different. She balanced her laptop and coffee cup while navigating the marble lobby, noticing an odd sense of melancholy welling up inside. She couldn't pinpoint why. It might have been the last conversation she had with Chloe Carter, a younger co-worker in the records department who'd teased, "Sarah, you spend so much time archiving other people's accomplishments. When are you going to make some new memories for yourself?" The question lingered in Sarah's mind, hitting closer to home than she cared to admit. Arriving at her tidy cubicle on the 12th floor, Sarah set down her coffee and quietly powered up her workstation. The gentle hum of computers enveloped her, providing a sense of predictability she usually found reassuring. No one knew about the small journal tucked in her oversized tote bag, her portable world of urban sketches. Within those pages, Sarah captured the essence of Chicago's lesser-seen corners, the crumbling brick walls in forgotten alleys, the hidden green spaces behind old industrial sites, or the winding L-tracks casting intricate shadows at dawn. Sketching gave her a private thrill. She felt alive while rendering the city's hidden truths, even if those artworks never ventured beyond her own eyes. Midway through organizing a new set of digital contracts for the company's archives, she sensed someone's presence behind her. Chloe's reflection appeared in the monitor. "Morning," Chloe chirped, sliding a donut across Sarah's desk. "Thought you could use some sugar today." Sarah smiled. While she normally watched her diet, the pink frosted offering felt like a small rebellion against her daily monotony. "I appreciate it," Sarah said, taking a tentative bite. "I might be here late with the new confidentiality protocols Jordan Reyes wants in place." Chloe's eyes widened. The CEO himself has been asking for those changes. He rarely gets this hands-on. Something big must be on the horizon. Sarah lifted her shoulders in a slight shrug. She was used to behind-the-scenes projects, orchestrating digital archives so seamlessly that nobody really noticed. Yet the mention of Jordan Reyes triggered a certain tension in the air. Despite her reserved demeanor, Sarah was intrigued by the company's enigmatic CEO. He was a man everyone respected but spoke of in hushed tones, brilliant, intensely private, and rumored to be under immense pressure regarding a major corporate deal. "Just another day," Sarah murmured, returning her attention to the data on her screen. But her heart fluttered at the thought of him reviewing the very documents she maintained. The day crawled forward in typical precision. Sarah navigated file directories, quality-checked uploads, and responded to departmental requests. Shortly after lunchtime, she found herself alone near a window in the corridor. She glanced out at the city skyline, letting her mind wander. She pictured the heavy concrete structures and the shimmering lake beyond them. A sudden need to capture that view struck her. Opening her tote bag, she retrieved her small sketchbook. With confident pencil strokes, she outlined the layered geometry of Chicago's high-rises, adding a hint of the sky's pallor. "This is silly," she whispered, though her heart told her otherwise. Each stroke was a quiet act of defiance, an attempt to bring color and individuality to her neat but inwardly unfulfilled life. No one at Reyes Holdings suspected that behind Sarah's diligent eyes and calm exterior lay a well of unexpressed longing. She prided herself on being indispensable in her role, but a subtle ache told her there was more to life. Before she shut the sketchbook and headed back to her cubicle, she glanced at the faint lines of her drawing. Somehow, that newly begun sketch felt like the start of something, a gentle stirring of possibility in a life that had long stood still. The following morning, Sarah stepped off the elevator, prepared for another round of meticulous digital cataloging. Yet as soon as she reached her desk, she sensed an unusual current in the air. The entire floor seemed a bit tense. Phones were ringing more urgently, and clusters of employees whispered in hurried tones. Before she could fully absorb the situation, Chloe bounded over, eyes wide. "Have you heard?" Chloe asked breathlessly. "Jordan Reyes has called an emergency briefing, something about a high-stakes negotiation in Charleston. There's buzz that it could reshape the entire company." Sarah raised an eyebrow, her heart skittering. "Charleston. So soon. I knew they'd been discussing expansions on the East Coast, but I didn't realize it was this critical." Chloe shook her head. "No one did. David Lee sent out an internal memo late last night. People are saying Mr. Reyes is personally reviewing every contract detail, down to the smallest file. Must be serious." Before Sarah could comment, the overhead speakers crackled. A calm but firm voice, the executive floor assistant, announced that Jordan Reyes would be holding a meeting in the main conference room in 15 minutes. Nerves fluttered in Sarah's stomach. While she didn't often interact directly with Jordan, the mention of file reviews caught her attention. She had processed nearly every digital record for Reyes Holdings in the past year. If Jordan was diving deep, it meant her work might land squarely under his microscope. She spent the next few minutes tidying her desk, trying to quell the anxious hum building within her. Then, with Chloe by her side, she made her way to the large glass-walled conference room. A hush settled as employees from various departments took their seats around a long, polished table. At precisely 9 o'clock, Jordan Reyes strode in, posture straight, expression serious. He was tall, with dark hair neatly combed back, wearing a tailored navy suit that exuded a quiet authority. The moment he entered, every conversation died down. "Good morning," he began, voice smooth but tinged with tension. "I'll be brief. There's an important acquisition opportunity in Charleston, South Carolina, which could redefine our portfolio. The final negotiations happen in 2 weeks at a major conference there. I'll be traveling to secure the deal personally." Sarah listened intently, tapping her pen against her notepad. A small prickle of unease formed when he mentioned that his long-standing executive assistant had fallen ill. Without that right hand, Jordan would need meticulous support in Charleston, particularly with sensitive digital files. But who would he pick? One of the finance managers raised a question about the timeline. Jordan explained that, due to an unexpected shift in the other party's schedule, everything was accelerated. David Lee, Reyes Holdings COO, added, "It'll be a race against time and we can't afford mistakes." A flicker of excitement fluttered within Sarah, mixed with dread. She excelled at avoiding mistakes, but the notion of stepping into a high-profile negotiation was daunting. Could it involve her? She was the one who had archived all those confidential documents. Glancing at Chloe, she noticed her friend smirking as if reading Sarah's thoughts. Once the briefing ended, the room erupted in chatter. Sarah was about to slip away when David Lee caught her eye. He offered a curt nod as if acknowledging her role in orchestrating the digital data that underpinned these discussions. She forced a polite smile and left, head spinning with speculation. Back at her desk, she tried to focus on her tasks, but found herself rechecking files for errors. She even updated one of the key contract indexes, preemptively ensuring it was immaculate. The tension in the entire office made her heart pound, but she was determined to maintain her composure. Shortly before lunch, Chloe sidled up. "So," she teased, "with all those files you handle, you might get roped into going, right?" Sarah's cheeks heated. "Don't be silly, Chloe. Jordan Reyes needs someone with a bigger skill set than just archiving." Yet, as she said it, she realized that no one knew those documents better than she did. And perhaps Jordan had taken notice, whether she liked it or not. For the rest of that day, Sarah oscillated between hyper-focused diligence and an undercurrent of rising anxiety. She had lost count of the times she refined the digital index for Charleston-related agreements. Her usual calm had morphed into a precarious restlessness that made her triple-check every piece of metadata. As the afternoon light slanted through the high windows, she glanced around to confirm no one was watching, then reached into her bag for her sketchbook. She flipped to a half-finished pencil drawing of an old Chicago alleyway, one she'd started the previous weekend. The shapes of rusted fire escapes and stacked bricks felt comforting in their simplicity. Sketching gave her mind the chance to wander without losing itself. Just as she added a detail of a broken window frame, an unexpected sound made her snap the sketchbook shut. "Sarah, you have a second." David Lee stood beside her cubicle. His tone was measured, but she detected a hint of urgency. Heart fluttering, she nodded and quickly followed him to a glass-walled huddle room. He gestured for her to sit. "You're aware of the upcoming trip to Charleston," he began, settling into a chair. "As you know, Mr. Reyes's executive assistant is out on medical leave. It's terrible timing, but we need someone who's familiar with the sensitive data we'll be working with." Sarah swallowed, her mind immediately jumping to the prospect of traveling. "I'm sure there are plenty of capable people," David cut in gently. "Yes, but we need the best fit. Jordan has been reviewing the Charleston files meticulously, and your name came up. He noticed how thoroughly you've compiled everything." She fidgeted with her pen. "Are you certain I'm qualified? I'm not used to high-stakes negotiations, and I've never traveled for the company." David offered a tight smile. "You're not being asked to negotiate. We need your organizational skills, your quick thinking, your intimate knowledge of the archive." "But," he added, leaning forward, "I sense your hesitation. Why?" Her throat felt dry. Flashes of a long-ago incident crowded her mind, a presentation in her early 20s where she'd frozen on stage, letting the entire team down. Ever since, she had confined herself to roles behind the scenes. "I just prefer the background," she finally said. David's gaze softened. "Look, no final decision has been made, but Jordan is leaning toward you. He might ask directly. So consider it. This could be a turning point for your career." With that, he left, and Sarah sat in a swirl of conflicting emotions. She returned to her desk, but her concentration was shot. Even Chloe's playful attempts at conversation fell flat. By late afternoon, she felt so claustrophobic that she took a quick break to roam the building's hallway, eventually stopping at a window overlooking the bustling Chicago streets below. Her reflection in the glass looked as uncertain as she felt. Could she really step into Jordan Reyes's world, even temporarily? A man so guarded and formidable, known for his razor-sharp intellect and icy demeanor, he was leagues away from the quiet routine she cherished. The rational part of her mind told her that an invitation like this was an opportunity, but the fearful part whispered that her safe, predictable life could unravel if she failed. As she returned to her desk to gather her belongings, she resolved to remain calm, yet a kernel of dread refused to leave. Was she really prepared to face not just the possibility of traveling, but also the potential scrutiny of working alongside the CEO, unbidden, Her hand brushed the cover of her sketchbook as if it were a talisman. With it, she could hold on to some sense of control. But she knew that if Jordan Reyes officially asked for her assistance, her carefully contained world might change forever. Early the next morning, Sarah was summoned to Jordan Reyes's office. The corridor leading there felt unusually quiet, as if every employee in the building was holding their breath. She clutched a slim folder containing updates to the Charleston contract indexes. She'd been working on them late into the night. As she neared the tall wooden door, her stomach flipped. Inside, Jordan sat behind a pristine black desk. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the vast Chicago skyline behind him, but his attention was squarely on Sarah. He offered a curt nod, gesturing for her to take a seat in a low chair. "I appreciate your punctuality, Miss Adams," he said. Even his voice seemed measured and precise. "David's informed me of your expertise with the digital archives. As you know, we face an accelerated timeline for the Charleston negotiations. I need someone to handle the documentation meticulously." Sarah inhaled, steeling herself. "I'm aware, Mr. Reyes. I've been refining everything. You'll have all the data in perfect order." His gaze was steady, revealing little. "That's precisely what I require, someone who can prevent oversights. My usual assistant is unavailable, so I'd like you to accompany me to Charleston. You'll manage the secure documents, coordinate updates, and provide any references needed during the discussions." For a moment, the words refused to register. She glanced at the folder in her hands. "With all respect, sir, are you sure I'm the right person? I've never traveled for a negotiation, and I don't have executive-level experience." He leaned back slightly. "I trust David's judgment. He believes you're the most thorough. I see that in the data you've prepared. I understand this may be out of your comfort zone, but time is short." His tone softened, fractionally. "Will you do it?" Her heart pounded, a drumbeat of fear and possibility. She thought of that disastrous presentation from her past, the one that had turned her away from the spotlight. Yet another voice in her mind pushed back. "This is your chance to step beyond your own limits." She tried to speak, but her throat felt tight. Finally, she forced the words out. I want to be helpful to the company. I can't deny that I know these documents intimately." Jordan nodded, as though he'd expected some resistance. "You'll have support, Ms. Adams. I'm not asking you to negotiate on my behalf, only to ensure every piece of data is at my fingertips." She swallowed. "All right, then I accept." For the first time, a faint flicker of approval crossed his face. "Good. We leave in 2 days. I'll have my assistant executive handle the travel details. I trust you'll be ready." Sarah stood, aware that her knees felt unsteady. She exited the office with a formal "thank you," but inside, her emotions were swirling. She had crossed a threshold. In 2 days, she would board a plane with Jordan Reyes, heading to a city she'd never visited, to participate in a negotiation with potentially enormous consequences for the company and for her own sense of self. The rest of the day felt surreal. Chloe nearly squealed with excitement when Sarah finally confided in her. "You're going to do great," she reassured Sarah while offering an impromptu hug. "I've seen how you handle data. Honestly, it's about time people see what you're capable of." Yet beneath the supportive words, Sarah's nerves crackled. Every time she thought of stepping into that plane, a rush of adrenaline and dread coiled within her. She forced herself to focus on organizing documents, triple-checking every digital reference to ensure not a single glitch slipped through. As evening approached, she packed her tote bag and left the office. The hustle of downtown Chicago felt more vibrant than usual, as though reflecting the jumpy anticipation inside her. She was teetering on the edge of her routine life, about to plunge into uncharted territory. On a chilly morning 2 days later, Sarah zipped up her suitcase in the modest studio apartment she called home. The interior of the small space was neat as always. Shelves labeled, boxes stacked with old sketches, and a single potted fern on her windowsill. That little plant felt like a companion in her quiet world. Her life was so meticulously arranged that the sudden call to Charleston felt like a tectonic shift. She checked her phone. A message from the executive team confirming the flight time. Jordan Reyes's private jet would depart from a small, exclusive airport on the outskirts of Chicago. The mere idea of boarding a private jet felt wildly out of character for her. She glanced at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, light brown hair brushed into a neat bob, dark eyes that carried traces of worry and curiosity. For an instant, she was overwhelmed by how quickly everything had changed. A knock on her door startled her. Opening it, she found Chloe standing there with a bright smile and a large travel mug of coffee. "I figured you'd need an energy boost," Chloe said, stepping inside. She surveyed Sarah's neat suitcase and carefully folded clothes. "Wow, you weren't kidding when you said you're organized." "I'm not sure if it's enough," Sarah admitted, accepting the coffee. "What if I can't handle the pressure? Jordan Reyes is known for his perfectionism. One slip-up and—" Chloe put a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Listen, you've been behind every successful digital rehaul in this company. You're the reason half of us don't drown in chaos. Trust me, you got this." She then handed Sarah a small item wrapped in tissue paper. A little good luck charm. Curious, Sarah unwrapped it to reveal a delicate pen emblazoned with a simple floral pattern. Chloe winked. "For note-taking, or maybe more sketches. Don't hide that part of yourself in Charleston." Warmth filled Sarah's chest. She remembered the times Chloe had gently urged her to be more open about her artistic side. "Thank you," she managed, voice soft. 40 minutes later, Sarah arrived at the private terminal. She inhaled sharply upon seeing the sleek plane with the Reyes Holdings insignia. A small cluster of staff waited by the steps. David Lee greeted her, checking his watch. "Perfect timing. Jordan's already on board making a few last-minute calls. Let's get you settled." Inside, the jet's interior was far more luxurious than anything she'd experienced. Plush leather seats, polished wood accents, and discreet attendants offering beverages. She found Jordan seated at a long table, reviewing a stack of papers. He looked up briefly, nodding in acknowledgement. "Good morning, Ms. Adams," he said, his tone professional but not unkind. "We'll be in the air for about 2 hours. Please make yourself comfortable." Sarah mumbled a polite greeting and sank into a seat across from him. No turning back now, she thought. She arranged her laptop, ensuring she could access the digital archive at any moment. From the corner of her eye, she glimpsed Jordan's expression soften as he noticed her system of color-coded folders. Shortly after takeoff, Jordan briefly explained the schedule. A week-long stay in Charleston, daily meetings with key stakeholders, and a major industry conference happening at the Palmetto Inn. Sarah listened carefully, typing notes with the pen Chloe had given her. Nerves still fluttered in her stomach, but a sense of calm also settled in. Perhaps she truly was needed here. The flight passed quickly, with Jordan engrossed in phone calls while Sarah triple-checked everything, from negotiation documents to hotel confirmations. When the pilot announced their descent, Sarah's pulse quickened. She peered through the window, glimpsing Charleston's coastline and historic skyline. A tiny thrill coursed through her. She might be terrified, but she was also, she realized, excited. As the plane touched down, Sarah exhaled. This was it. She was crossing a threshold into a new chapter of her life, one that promised challenges beyond her comfort zone. And whether she succeeded or stumbled, one thing was certain. She would never again be content with simply drifting in the shadowy corners of the archives. Sarah stepped off the private jet, immediately struck by the balmy air that clung to Charleston. It felt worlds away from the crisp chill of Chicago. She clutched her laptop bag in one hand and rolled her modest carry-on behind her, stealing a quick look at Jordan Reyes, who walked ahead with confident strides. Though he'd barely spoken during the flight, she sensed a current of intensity coursing through him. A sleek black car waited on the tarmac to whisk them to the Palmetto Inn, an upscale hotel nestled among Charleston's historical streets. During the drive, Sarah peered out the window, soaking in the pastel row houses and ancient oaks, dripping with Spanish moss. Something about the city made her feel both welcomed and slightly disoriented, like she had landed in another era. Jordan's phone rang in an almost continuous loop. Each call seemed to revolve around last-minute preparations for the conference, high-level concerns about contracts, or final confirmations with potential partners. Sarah listened quietly, thumbing through her digital index on a tablet. She was resolved to be ready with any document Jordan requested at a moment's notice. As they neared the Palmetto Inn, its elegant facade rose into view. A doorman greeted them warmly, addressing Jordan by name, clearly accustomed to high-profile guests. Inside, a grand lobby with polished marble floors and ornate chandeliers exuded a gentle southern charm. The sight gave Sarah a small thrill of excitement. This was not the kind of place she ever pictured herself staying. The hotel manager, a tall, apologetic man named Mr. Abernathy, bustled over immediately. "Mr. Reyes, Ms. Adams, welcome. We're honored to have you both. However, I must offer my sincerest apologies. We've had a massive booking error. Our system crashed while finalizing reservations for the conference, and due to the city's high occupancy, we only have one suite left available." His voice wavered slightly. "Our presidential suite, the Magnolia Suite." Sarah's cheeks heated. She darted a glance at Jordan. He remained utterly still, though his jaw tightened. "Are you saying there's not a single second room? No alternatives?" "Regrettably, sir," Mr. Abernathy replied. "Every guest room in Charleston seems booked up. We've called around. Other hotels are full because of the tech conference and tourism surge." A tense pause settled between them. Sarah felt her stomach somersault at the implication. She had prepared to have her own quiet space where she could unwind after the stress of these negotiations. Sharing a suite with Jordan Reyes, someone known for his strict boundaries, felt unimaginable. But there was no immediate solution. "Fine," Jordan said at last, his voice clipped. "We'll take the Magnolia Suite for now, but I expect your staff to do everything possible to rectify this." Mr. Abernathy nodded earnestly. "Of course, sir. We will provide every courtesy, room service, amenities, anything you need to ensure your stay is comfortable. If a second room becomes available, you'll be the first to know." They followed a bellman toward the elevator in an awkward silence. Sarah clutched her suitcase handle, trying to project calm despite the unease swirling inside her. When the elevator doors slid open on the top floor, they stepped into a long corridor lined with ornate sconces. The Magnolia Suite's double doors led into a sprawling space with a separate sitting area, a dining nook, and large windows showcasing Charleston's colorful rooftops. Though undoubtedly luxurious, the suite represented exactly what she had never wanted: forced proximity with her stern CEO. Jordan gave a resigned sigh. "Let's make the best of it," he said flatly. "The suite is spacious. I'll take the main bedroom. You can use the living area and the pull-out sofa. We'll each have some privacy." Sarah managed a tight nod, setting her bags near the sofa. Already, she felt the weight of this trip intensify. Charleston was supposed to be about work, but now there was an unexpected twist. Sharing a single suite with the man who ran Reyes Holdings. As she glanced at the panoramic view from the windows, She wondered if this was merely the first of many complications awaiting them in the days to come. Sunlight poured through the massive windows of the Magnolia Suite the next morning, illuminating every elegant corner. Sarah woke early, having spent a restless night on the pull-out sofa in the living area. Though the suite was impressively large, she had never been more aware of Jordan Reyes's presence, just a door away in the master bedroom. While she tried to maintain a calm, professional demeanor, she couldn't ignore the prickling discomfort of this unusual arrangement. Gathering her courage, she grabbed her laptop and tiptoed into the suite's small kitchenette to brew coffee, hoping the aroma might ease the tension. Moments later, Jordan emerged from his room, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. He paused, seeming slightly less guarded as he inhaled the scent of fresh coffee. "Morning," he said, voice low. "I appreciate you making that." Sarah offered a polite smile. "No problem. I figured we could both use a cup before we dive into work." They stood in awkward silence by the marble countertop. Finally, Jordan cleared his throat. "I propose we set up some boundaries. We'll be working closely, but I'd like to avoid any misunderstandings." Sarah's stomach fluttered anxiously. "Yes, absolutely." He took a careful sip of coffee. "For starters, if we stick to opposite corners of the suite after hours, that should preserve some personal space. I'll occupy the bedroom and you'll have the living area. And if you need me for any documents, just knock." "Understood," Sarah nodded, noticing the faint shadows under his eyes. He seemed tense, perhaps as uneasy about this arrangement as she was. They soon left for the first day of preliminary meetings at the hotel's conference center, stepping into the elevator side by side. As they arrived in the bustling atrium, Mr. Abernathy appeared with profuse apologies once more, trying to make up for the reservation fiasco by offering complimentary spa passes and special dining vouchers. Sarah felt a flush of embarrassment, but Jordan just thanked him curtly and moved on. Inside a large meeting room, they joined David Lee and a handful of other Reyes Holdings representatives, all scanning through laptops and documents. Sarah plugged in her device, prepared to coordinate references as needed. The day unfolded in a blur of discussions on market analysis, potential synergy points, and the key stakeholders they needed to impress. During a brief pause, Chloe's face popped up on Sarah's phone in a text message. "How's the hotel? Heard about a crazy overbooking." Sarah typed back a quick reply, "Let's just say I'm gaining new experiences," and left it at that. By mid-afternoon, Jordan led a smaller group to discuss a critical financial outline. He beckoned Sarah over. "I need that digital ledger from last quarter." She retrieved it quickly, projecting it onto the screen. Some of the executives present looked surprised that someone from archives had that level of instant retrieval. Jordan seemed unfazed. "Ms. Adams is handling our data for the trip," he said, with a smooth confidence that made her stand a little taller. Once the session wrapped up, a hush fell between them. Sarah followed Jordan out, noticing the lines of strain around his eyes. He was formidable, but there was something almost fragile in the set of his mouth. On the elevator ride back to their suite, neither said much, both weighed down by the enormity of these negotiations. When they re-entered the Magnolia Suite, sunset light cast a warm glow across plush furniture. Jordan removed his jacket, exhaling. "Tomorrow's meetings are early. Let's finalize the morning documents tonight." Sarah's stomach rumbled quietly. She hadn't eaten since lunch. "Sure. Then we should probably get some rest." They each claimed separate corners, Jordan at the dining table, Sarah on the sofa. Though awkward, it provided a semblance of normalcy. As she skimmed through file after file, she caught herself stealing glances at him, wondering if he felt as uneasy as she did. Despite the tension, there was a strange sense of camaraderie, as if they were both forced into an unspoken pact, surviving this unexpected arrangement together, one day at a time. The next morning, Sarah quickly learned that Charleston's rhythm hummed at a different pace from Chicago's. Still, the Palmetto Inn conference halls buzzed with a frenetic energy all their own, thanks to the industry event drawing executives from across the country. By 8 o'clock, Sarah and Jordan were already immersed in back-to-back meetings, each critical to sealing the grand acquisition Reyes Holdings sought. While Jordan engaged in high-level talks, Sarah kept meticulous track of every contract revision. She worked quickly to integrate last-minute changes into digital formats, ensuring that any detail Jordan needed was at his fingertips. When she finally took a short break to retrieve extra copies from the printers, she spotted a sharp-featured man in an impeccably tailored suit watching her from across the room. Something in his posture radiated self-assurance bordering on arrogance. She hurried back to Jordan, who raised an eyebrow at her slightly flustered expression. "Everything all right?" he asked, scanning the updated files she handed him. Sarah hesitated. "There's someone over there I haven't met. A tall man with a dark grey suit. He seemed curious about what I'm doing." Jordan followed her gaze. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's Mark Landon," he said in a low voice. "He's the CEO of Apex Solutions, a competitor with a knack for undercutting deals. He's also here for the same acquisition." Sarah felt a jolt of unease. "He looked like he recognized me, which is strange." Jordan's eyes flicked back to Landon, who had started talking to a group of people, though he appeared fully aware of Jordan's presence. "He probably noticed you working closely with me. Landon's not above using personal angles to rattle people." The mention of personal angles sent a chill through Sarah. She pressed her lips together. "I'll be careful." Jordan nodded, returning his focus to the contract briefing. Yet the tension in his shoulders told her that Landon's appearance was no minor concern. Later that afternoon, a networking reception took place in one of the hotel's ornate ballrooms. Round tables were set with crisp linens, and servers glided around offering sweet tea and hors d'oeuvres. Sarah was about to refill her glass at the beverage station when a smooth voice spoke at her shoulder. "You must be Ms. Adams, right?" She turned to find herself face to face with Mark Landon. Up close, he wore a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yes, Sarah Adams," she replied politely, though her instincts told her to keep the conversation short. Landon leaned in slightly, lowering his voice as if sharing a confidence. "Interesting setup. Traveling with Reyes himself. Not everyone gets that chance." Sarah tried to keep her tone neutral. "I'm handling digital documentation for the negotiations. That's all." He offered a feigned expression of warmth. "Oh, of course. Must be nice for Jordan to have such dedicated support, though one might wonder," he paused for effect, "how distracting that kind of arrangement could become." Her cheeks heated. She sensed his implication about the shared suite, though he couldn't possibly know the exact circumstances. Still, a flash of annoyance surfaced. "We're both here to finalize a professional acquisition," she said, voice clipped. "There's nothing distracting about it." His smirk suggested he didn't believe her. "Of course, Ms. Adams. I wish you and Reyes the best of luck." Then he backed away, disappearing into the crowd. When Jordan found her a few minutes later, he immediately detected her unsettled mood. "Landon?" he guessed quietly. Sarah exhaled. "Yes, he made some insinuations." Jordan's expression hardened. "He's always probing for weak spots. Don't let him get to you." Despite his reassurance, Sarah's confidence wavered. Sharing a hotel suite with her boss was already disconcerting, But the knowledge that corporate rivals like Landon might twist it to their advantage made her uneasy. She realized that, while the business deal was complicated enough, outside forces could exploit any vulnerability, especially one with personal overtones. And in the days ahead, that vulnerability might become harder and harder to hide. That evening, Sarah found a moment of quiet on the Magnolia Suites' wide terrace. She had taken her sketchbook, hoping to capture Charleston's charming skyline in the golden dusk. From this vantage point, pastel buildings lined the narrow streets, and palm trees framed steeples that rose against the horizon. The hum of a warm southern breeze wrapped around her. She began with light pencil strokes, shaping the rooftops and distant silhouettes. Sketching soothed her, a means to unburden her thoughts. The tension of the day, especially Landon's insinuations, clung to her mind. But as each line formed under her hand, she felt a gentle release. She was so absorbed she didn't notice Jordan step outside until he spoke softly. "That's impressive." Startled, she turned. He stood a few feet away, tie loosened, a rare hint of relaxation on his face. "I'm sorry, I didn't hear you come out," she said, quickly flipping the sketchbook closed. He motioned toward the cityscape. "Do you always draw like that?" Sarah felt a flush creep over her cheeks. "Only as a hobby. I find it calming." Jordan's gaze rested on the edges of her sketchbook. "You captured Charleston's essence in just a few lines. It's remarkable." Unsure how to respond, she tentatively reopened to her current drawing. "I like old architecture. The stories in these buildings fascinate me." Jordan nodded, moving closer to see. "My father used to talk about the historical homes here." He admired the craftsmanship. His tone was unusually gentle, as though revealing an aspect of himself he rarely shared. Sarah dared to press a little. "Did you come here often as a child?" His eyes flickered with memory. "A few times before he passed away. We'd walk through the old districts. I was much younger, but I remember his voice echoing under those massive live oaks." Something in his expression opened, and in that moment, Sarah saw not just the formidable CEO, but a man carrying an unspoken grief. She found herself wanting to know more. "I never knew you were interested in historical preservation," she said softly, sensing he might not like personal questions. He shrugged, returning his gaze to the city. "I suppose it's one of the few passions I kept hidden after I lost him." The hush between them felt weighted with sincerity. Sarah closed her sketchbook gently. "Sometimes it's easier to keep those parts of ourselves locked away, especially at work," she said, voice low. Jordan studied her, an unspoken understanding passing between them. "And your art, Sarah. Do you keep it locked away too?" She almost laughed at the accuracy of his observation. "I guess so. I'm just an archivist, right? People don't expect me to have other ambitions." His brow furrowed slightly, as if disturbed by that idea. "They should," he replied. They lingered there, side by side, the evening sky shifting into deeper shades of orange and pink. The intimacy of this shared moment felt fragile, like one wrong word could shatter it. Before either could speak again, a soft chime from Jordan's phone shattered the stillness. He stepped back, pressing it to his ear. Sarah caught fragments about an early morning meeting and critical documents. When he ended the call, his earlier softness had faded into the driven businessman once more. "Looks like we'll need to be up at dawn," he said briskly. "The conference is moving faster than expected." Sarah nodded, hugging her sketchbook to her chest. Though the moment broke, the afterglow lingered in her mind, a hint that beneath Jordan's reserved facade lay genuine warmth. And somehow, that fleeting connection gave her a burst of reassurance that she wasn't facing this chaotic trip alone. Late the next afternoon, The relentless pace of back-to-back sessions finally paused. Sarah and Jordan had just wrapped a crucial preliminary talk that verified Reyes Holdings could meet the acquisition target's strict compliance standards. The mood in the room was tense until Sarah spotted a subtle yet glaring contradiction in one of the proposed clauses. Quietly, she slid a note to Jordan, pointing out the potential loophole the legal team had overlooked. He scanned the note, eyes narrowing in gratitude. With calm authority, he redirected the negotiation, addressing the issue before it became a sticking point. The other side hesitated, clearly taken aback that Reyes Holdings had caught the trap so swiftly. Moments later, Jordan secured agreement to revise the clause in a way that favored Reyes. Walking out of that meeting felt like stepping into bright sunlight after a long tunnel. Jordan stopped briefly in the hallway, turning to Sarah. "You saved us from a major setback," he said, voice laced with genuine appreciation. She offered a careful smile. "Just doing my job. I'm glad I noticed in time." "You have a remarkable eye for detail," he added. "We wouldn't have caught that without you." The faintest flush warmed her cheeks. She wasn't used to direct praise, especially from him. After the day's final session, Jordan surprised her by suggesting they dine at Husk, a renowned Charleston restaurant known for its inventive Southern cuisine. "We can go over tomorrow's agenda there," he said, almost as an afterthought. Sarah agreed, though a swirl of nerves accompanied her excitement. She changed into a simple navy blouse and black skirt, while Jordan switched to a crisp shirt without a tie. The tension of work hung between them, but it felt lighter than usual. Husk stood in a restored historic home with soft lighting and a welcoming vibe. They were escorted to a corner table, and as they settled in, Sarah caught herself admiring the rustic decor, exposed brick walls and repurposed wood panels that spoke of centuries of Charleston history. Jordan opened the menu, glancing up occasionally to check her reaction. "Ever tried shrimp and grits?" he asked, almost conversationally. She offered a shy laugh. "Not the authentic kind. I've read about the low-country cuisine, but never had a real chance to explore it." Once they placed their orders, the conversation drifted to tomorrow's negotiations. Sarah felt a sense of pride as Jordan solicited her opinions on which documents to highlight and how to structure the day's timeline. She realized he wasn't just humoring her, he valued her input. When the food arrived, plump, spicy shrimp resting on creamy, stone-ground grits, Sarah savored each bite, a pleasant warmth spreading through her. Jordan, usually so reserved, seemed slightly more at ease too. She caught a fleeting hint of a smile that curved his lips as he sampled his dish. "I didn't realize you'd done so much research on these contract terms," Jordan remarked, dabbing his mouth with a napkin. "You caught that loophole because you were thinking beyond the initial data." Sarah glanced away, modest. "I've spent years organizing archives. You learn to question patterns, to watch for what's missing." He raised his glass in a subtle toast. "Well, to what's missing, may we always find it before the competition does." They clinked glasses. A quiet sense of camaraderie rose between them, as if they were no longer just boss and assistant, but co-conspirators in a shared mission. For a moment, the stress and scrutiny of Charleston seemed to fade into the background. Stepping out onto the old cobblestone street afterward, Sarah felt that maybe, just maybe, they had things under control, despite the hotel fiasco, despite Mark Landon's lurking interference. There was still much at stake, but for this brief evening, they'd found a small victory to celebrate. And as Jordan led the way back toward the Palmetto Inn, Sarah walked with a new lightness in her step, wondering if this fragile sense of confidence could carry them through the far tougher days ahead. By the following day, Charleston's charm offered little solace against the mounting pressure Sarah felt. The conference, already in full swing, bombarded Jordan Reyes with demands for quick decisions. Sarah worked tirelessly, organizing a growing stack of digital files that reflected last-minute changes, fresh data points, and potential counter-arguments. She noticed Jordan's shoulders tense more each time new questions arose about the acquisition's viability. Early that morning, they settled at a table in the Palmetto Inn's quiet side lounge. Sarah had commandeered a corner where her laptop, tablet, and color-coded folders spanned every surface. She sipped a cup of strong coffee, trying to quell the nervous energy in her stomach. This was not mere busy work. These documents would determine if Reyes Holdings secured a groundbreaking expansion or faced a humiliating setback. Jordan leaned over her shoulder, scanning a spreadsheet she'd compiled. These forecasting charts, can you cross-reference them with last quarter's performance in the southern region? He asked in a clipped tone. His tie was slightly askew, a rare sign of his strain. Already done, Sarah answered, pulling up the relevant file. I flagged key variances in red. You'll see potential pitfalls if the target company's supply chain falters. His gaze flickered with appreciation, but he remained outwardly composed. Perfect. We might need to present this to the stakeholders at today's lunch meeting. Thank you. They spoke little after that, both absorbed in the relentless task of preparing for the next round of negotiations. Landon's presence loomed in the back of their minds. Rumors circulated that Apex Solutions was courting some of the same stakeholders with aggressive terms, hoping to paint Jordan as too rigid. Worse yet, Landon's jabs at Sarah's presence had not diminished. A colleague discreetly informed her that Landon was overheard referring to her as the surprise piece on Reyes's chessboard, which only reinforced the sense that her every move was under scrutiny. Shortly before noon, Jordan left to confirm arrangements with David Lee. Sarah remained behind, tapping fervently on her keyboard. She double-checked encryption settings on sensitive files, ensuring that no competitor, particularly Landon, could infiltrate them. Her phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. Heard from others in the office that you're working miracles out there. Hang in there. Superstar. Sarah smiled, the word superstar feeling odd but sweet. It reminded her that behind all this corporate frenzy, a friend believed in her. Pushing aside a flicker of self-doubt, she hurried to finalize a bullet-point summary for Jordan's next presentation. They reconvened in the lobby, heading to a luncheon hosted in one of the hotel's ornate banquet rooms. Round tables were draped with crisp linens, and well-dressed professionals mingled in every corner. Sarah discreetly found a seat near the back so she could track the slides and assist Jordan if needed. Standing at the front, he delivered his pitch with quiet confidence, underscoring Reyes Holdings' stability and long-term commitment. More than once, he shot Sarah a glance that seemed to say, "Stay alert, be ready." She nodded, her tablet open to the relevant data sets. Applause followed Jordan's closing remarks, but tension still pulsed in the air. Sarah overheard whispers. Some delegates were impressed by Reyes Holdings' thoroughness. Others hinted that Apex Solutions was making a push with a flashier bid. Landon was across the room, leaning against a pillar with a smug tilt to his chin, as though ready to pounce on any sign of weakness. When the luncheon ended, Jordan and Sarah slipped out to the corridor. His composed facade showed cracks beneath harsh fluorescent lights. "We need to keep refining the final proposal for tomorrow morning," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Landon's stirring up doubts, and we can't let him undermine us." Sarah straightened her shoulders. "We'll make sure every angle is covered," she said firmly. Despite the ominous sense that events were accelerating beyond their control, she refused to let anxiety paralyze her. If Jordan Reyes needed someone to stand at his side in this high-stakes battlefield, she was determined to be ready, no matter how close the walls felt like closing in. That evening, Sarah found herself in a whirlwind of back-to-back conference calls and last-minute file edits. By the time she reached the Magnolia Suite, her muscles ached and her head pounded. She expected Jordan to be locked away in the bedroom, but instead he was pacing the living area in his shirt sleeves, phone in hand. "David, I understand, but we can't concede that point," he said quietly, voice clipped with frustration. "Tell the legal team we need their updated draft now, not in 2 hours." He ended the call, gaze landing on Sarah, who paused by the sofa. "That bad?" she asked gently. Jordan let out a breath. "Landon's manipulations are pushing the other party to demand more concessions than we can stomach. We're running out of time." Sarah bit her lip. "Then let's look for a creative workaround." She settled her laptop on the coffee table. "We can cross-check older agreements to see if there's a clause that helps us stand firm." He studied her a moment, a shadow of exhaustion behind his eyes. "All right, let's try." They huddled side by side, scanning pages of legalese, the tension between them a constant hum. Hours slid by in that shared vigil. Midnight approached, and the atmosphere in the suite felt almost claustrophobic. Papers lay scattered on the coffee table, half-finished mugs of tea going cold. When Sarah finally closed a file, she realized her hand trembled from stress and fatigue. Jordan rubbed his temple. "I'll get more tea," he murmured. But when he stood, he wavered slightly, as if dizzy. Sarah jumped up, steadying him by the arm. "You haven't eaten since lunch," she admonished gently. "Sit, I'll order room service." Though he didn't protest, she sensed his reluctance in letting someone else take care of him. Within minutes, she requested a light meal from the hotel menu. A wave of protectiveness ran through her as she guided him back to the sofa. He looked drained, so unlike the controlled CEO she'd known in Chicago. Room service arrived with sandwiches and fruit. Jordan gave a half-smile of thanks, but ate quietly. Sarah took a seat on the far end of the sofa, nibbling her own food. Exhaustion weighed on them both, yet an undercurrent of intimacy formed in the quiet. This was no typical boss-assistant scenario. Two weary people, cornered by circumstance, forging a kind of alliance. When they finished, Jordan exhaled, leaning back. "I didn't anticipate this level of pushback," he admitted, voice low. "Or how complicated it would get with the press breathing down our necks. Landon's definitely fanning the flames." Sarah recalled the lingering stares and the sly remarks about her presence. "We can't control the rumor mill," she said softly, "but we can control the integrity of our offer." Jordan nodded. Then something flickered in his eyes. Concern, perhaps. "I don't want you to become collateral damage in this. My reputation can take a beating. I'm used to it, but you—" She swallowed. "I knew the risks." In truth, she had never imagined the scrutiny, but it felt important to show calm. "I'll handle it." They sat there for another few seconds, each weighed down by both the negotiations and the unspoken tension drawn tight between them. At last, Jordan shifted closer. "Sarah," he said, voice hushed, "you've been indispensable. I'm grateful." His hand lifted slightly as though he might brush her cheek, but he stopped short. Sarah's breath caught. The air between them felt charged, a near-electric hum. The fatigue, the adrenaline, the sense of battling a common foe, it all seemed to swirl into this moment. Her heart pounded. Some part of her wanted to close the distance, to feel the warmth of his presence. Yet hesitation flared, reminding her of the fragile lines they tread. She opened her mouth to speak, but a sudden jingle from Jordan's phone shattered the moment. The spell broke, and his arm dropped. Without a word, he reached for the phone, face returning to the business at hand. Sarah exhaled shakily and turned away. For a heartbeat, she felt a pang of longing for something they weren't quite ready to name. But real life beckoned, dragging them back to negotiations and corporate battles, leaving that almost intimate moment to linger as a promise unfulfilled. Sarah couldn't deny it any longer. The reservation mix-up that forced her and Jordan to share the Magnolia Suite had turned into the pivotal element of this entire trip. It wasn't simply an inconvenience. It was the catalyst for every charged moment, every flash of vulnerability that neither of them had anticipated. Late at night, nearly 2 days before the final negotiation, Sarah found herself back on the suite's terrace, the same spot where she'd once attempted a peaceful sketch. Charleston's skyline glittered under a canopy of stars. A soft southern breeze ruffled her hair. She shut her eyes, inhaling the faint scent of jasmine from some hidden courtyard below. The sliding door opened behind her, and she didn't have to turn to know it was Jordan. His footsteps were subdued against the terrace tiles. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, voice resonating in the quiet night. She shook her head. "My mind won't stop spinning. I keep running through possible outcomes for the negotiations, and also—" She trailed off, not wanting to mention the swirl of personal emotions tangled in her thoughts. Jordan leaned on the railing, his gaze following the gentle curve of the Charleston rooftops. "This city can lull you into a strange kind of reverie, can't it?" A faint smile tugged at his mouth. "Feels worlds away from Chicago." Sarah's shoulders relaxed slightly. "It does. And this suite," she added, a wry note creeping into her voice, "is definitely something no one back home would ever believe. It's not every day your million-dollar CEO boss ends up traveling with his quiet archivist. And all because of a hotel booking error." He let out a soft laugh, one she realized she'd seldom heard. "No one could have predicted it," he agreed. "But I can't say I regret it. Despite the complications, this forced proximity, it's made me see things differently." She felt her heart flutter. "Differently how?" He turned, resting his back against the railing, arms folded. In the dim light, his features softened. "I've never allowed myself to let anyone get too close, professionally or personally. But you're different. You see details others miss. You're calm under pressure, yet your perspective is refreshing." He paused, seeming to gather courage. "And you've shown me that maybe being guarded isn't always the best way to lead or to live." Warmth rose in Sarah's chest, but also a spike of fear. Stepping closer to him, she confessed, "I don't have all the answers. I just try my best." He inclined his head. "That's all any of us can do, but these past days, this entire situation—" His voice caught, and he cleared his throat. "It's made me feel more human than I have in a long time." They exchanged a long, searching glance. For a moment, the swirl of negotiation data, corporate rivalries, and endless meeting schedules seemed to vanish. All Sarah felt was the hush of the night, the brightness in Jordan's gaze, and the timid new bond forming between them. Her heart pounded as she realized how easily she could lean in, how simple it would be to press her lips to his, yet how complicated the consequences might be. They both stood at the edge of a profound shift, perched between sense and desire. He reached for her hand, fingertips grazing hers, when the doorbell to their suite chimed loudly. The instant shattered. Jordan exhaled, looking vexed by the interruption, but eventually released her hand. Inside, an apologetic Mr. Abernathy stood by the entrance. "I'm so sorry to disturb you both. I just wanted to deliver some important documents that arrived by courier for Mr. Reyes," he explained in a hushed tone. Sarah exchanged a rueful look with Jordan. The unexpected suite had indeed brought them closer. But every time they began to lower their guards, reality came knocking, reminding them that this trip was never just about them. Yet she couldn't deny that the seeds of something new had taken root under Charleston's night sky. And as Jordan took the envelope, she wondered if they would allow that fragile seed to blossom into something real once the business storm passed. Sarah found it surprising how quickly her days had become tethered to Jordan's schedule. Every morning, they rushed through coffee and hurried off to face a gauntlet of meetings. By evening, they returned to the Magnolia Suite, each burdened by fresh demands. Yet in the quiet moments, like a hush between storms, they drifted toward unguarded confessions, bridging the gap between CEO and assistant in ways neither had anticipated. One particularly grueling day ended with a tense standoff in the negotiation room. Mark Landon had nearly derailed the talks by introducing misleading data about Reyes Holdings' financial stability, forcing Jordan to defend the company's record at length. By the time they returned to the suite, both were drained. Sarah placed her laptop on the dining table, rubbing her temples. "That was rough, but you held your ground." Jordan loosened his tie and sank into a chair. "Thanks to your quick documentation retrieval, we discredited Landon's claims before the damage spread. I owe you." His voice was a raw whisper of relief and fatigue. She sat across from him, offering a gentle shrug. "We're in this together, right?" Silence settled, thick with the unspoken tension they kept dancing around. She swallowed, trying to muster the courage to speak the words swirling in her mind. "Jordan, you asked me before if I keep my art locked away. I guess I do, but that's not the only part of me I hide." He tilted his head, curiosity rippling in his gaze. "What else are you hiding?" She rubbed the back of her neck. "I've always been terrified of stepping beyond safe boundaries, professionally, personally. Whenever I considered taking a risk, I'd convince myself it was reckless. Drawing, traveling, speaking up, even letting people in. But here I am, sharing a suite with you. It's made me see how life can force change on us when we least expect it." For a moment, Jordan said nothing. Then he exhaled, leaning forward. "My father's death taught me that letting people in only leads to pain, eventually. So I built walls around my work, my emotions, everything, but you're making me reconsider." She didn't know what to say. Their confessions hung between them like delicate glass ornaments. One wrong move, and they might shatter. "I guess we both know how to keep ourselves closed off," she managed softly. He nodded, gaze dropping to her hand resting on the table. Slowly, he reached out and covered it with his. His palm felt warm, a physical reassurance that steadied her fluttering nerves. "Sarah," he murmured, "you're not the only one afraid of what this might mean." Her heart hammered. She turned her hand to lace her fingers with his, an innocent yet monumental gesture that sent sparks through her body. "So where does that leave us?" she whispered, voice trembling with fragile hope. He was about to reply when the lights flickered, probably a brief electrical surge in the old building. The moment of darkness startled them, and she squeezed his hand in reflex. When the lights came back on, they found themselves staring into each other's eyes, breath-catching. It would have been so easy to lean in, to kiss him right then, under the lamp's soft glow. She could practically taste the possibility of it. Yet the swirl of rumors and the looming negotiation overshadowed the tender calm. She pulled back gently, feeling tears prick the corners of her eyes from sheer overload of emotion. Jordan released her hand with obvious reluctance. "We should get some rest," he said, voice husky. "Tomorrow's pivotal for the final negotiation. The board members will be here, and Landon will try every trick in the book." She nodded, stepping away. But that night, as she curled up on the pull-out sofa, the warmth of his touch lingered, fueling her dreams with visions of starlight and confessions so intimate they almost hurt. Whatever tomorrow held, she sensed the shape of her life was already changing in ways she could never reverse. A tense hush blanketed the hotel's largest conference room the next morning. Rows of men and women in business attire lined a stately wooden table. Jordan stood at the head, projecting authority despite the obvious strain etched into his face. On Sarah's laptop screen, the final version of Reyes Holdings' proposal glowed like a lifeline. They only needed the other side to agree, but a single misstep could unravel everything. Midway through the presentation, Sarah noticed Mark Landon hover near the back, watching with an almost predatory smirk. She couldn't shake the feeling he was up to something. Her suspicions were confirmed an hour later when, during a short break, Jordan's phone buzzed incessantly. He stepped away to take the call and returned moments later, grim. Local online news just ran a piece insinuating an inappropriate relationship between me and my personal assistant, he said under his breath. His voice shook with anger. They have a photo, something taken outside the hotel last night. It looks compromising. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. What photo? She whispered, mind racing to recall any moment that might have been misconstrued. He pressed his lips together. We were standing on the terrace, I think. The angle makes it look like, well, something else. His eyes darted around. This could ruin the negotiation. The board will question my judgment, and the other party might doubt our professionalism. Sarah's heart thundered. She grabbed her phone, seeing a flurry of messages from Chloe. Sarah, oh my God, are you okay? The news must have spread like wildfire. Her stomach twisted in mortification. She'd never sought any spotlight, let alone salacious rumors. Now her integrity hung in the balance. Moments later, word reached the negotiating table. A couple of the target company's representatives exchanged uneasy glances. One cleared his throat. Mr. Reyes, we respect your business acumen, but these allegations raise concerns about focus and ethics. Jordan's composure cracked. They're baseless, he said tersely. We maintain professional conduct at all times. Landon, leaning near the doorway, lifted a brow in mock concern. We all know how rumors can hurt a company's reputation, he said in a smooth tone. Perhaps you should clarify the situation before finalizing any deal. Wouldn't want misunderstandings to tarnish a future partnership. Sarah's nails dug into her palm. She wanted to speak up, but fear weighed on her tongue. The board from the potential acquisition looked uneasy, some openly scrolling through phones to read the gossip. In that instant, Jordan's frustration erupted. Enough, he snapped at no one in particular, slamming a folder onto the table. We're here to discuss business fundamentals, not tabloid nonsense. The tension was palpable. A wave of discomfort rippled across the room as eyes darted from Sarah to Jordan. Let's take a brief recess, one of the lead negotiators suggested. 10 minutes, we can all reconvene. As people filed out, Jordan turned to Sarah. His face was taut with anger and hurt. This is exactly what I feared, he said in a strained whisper. Our personal closeness, whatever it is, has become fuel for gossip, and now it threatens everything. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. I never wanted this. I'm sorry if I made things worse by staying in that suite with you. His jaw tightened. No, it's not your fault, but I need to fix it fast if we lose the deal because of rumors, or if the board pulls out. He trailed off, rubbing a hand over his face. I can't believe Landon stooped this low. She took a shaky breath. What do you want me to do? Just stay out of the spotlight until I can calm them down, he managed, stepping back as though her very presence stung. I need to handle this. Before she could speak, he stormed off. Sarah stood rooted, feeling like the world had collapsed beneath her feet. The quiet rapport and tentative closeness they'd built in the Magnolia Suite now lay in shambles. She sensed Jordan's anger wasn't purely directed at the rumors or Landon. He was lashing out at her, or at least at what she symbolized, an emotional vulnerability he'd never wanted to expose. And as the break ended, she knew this crisis would test not only the fate of the deal, but the fragile bond she and Jordan had painstakingly forged. Sarah's vision blurred with tears as she hastily packed the few belongings she had scattered around the Magnolia suite. In the bedroom, Jordan's suitcase and personal effects remained neatly in place, a stark reminder of the tense scene that had erupted only hours before. The damaging story about their supposed inappropriate relationship had thrown the entire negotiation into jeopardy, and Jordan, consumed by anger and humiliation, had lashed out. She left a brief note on a sheet of hotel stationery, her handwriting trembling. "Mr. Reyes, I'm returning to Chicago so you can finalize the deal without further distraction. Sarah." It was a coolly formal tone, yet her heart raged with hurt. She truly believed she had compromised his position, and his piercing accusation earlier, "You're a distraction I can't afford," echoed in her ears, flooding her with shame. As she closed the suite door behind her, every step toward the elevator felt weighted and final. Downstairs in the lobby, she caught a glimpse of Mark Landon in conversation with an unfamiliar young man. Something about the pair's furtive body language drew Sarah's attention. She observed from a distance, uncertain whether to confront him or slip away unnoticed. Her instincts, sharpened by years of methodical archive work, urged her to watch more closely. An envelope changed hands. The younger man glanced around nervously, then stuffed it into his briefcase before disappearing into the crowd. Landon, with a self-satisfied smirk, strolled off in another direction. A familiar dread slid into Sarah's gut. This was no innocent exchange. It hinted at manipulation or bribery. If that man was connected to the targeted company's negotiating team, Landon could be actively sabotaging Jordan's deal behind the scenes. Uneasy thoughts spun in her mind as she hurried outside to hail a cab. She climbed in, requesting a ride to the airport. Yet while the car weaved through Charleston's historic streets, a storm of conflicted feelings churned within her. She pictured Jordan's face when he found her note, when he realized she had fled. Would he care? Or would he simply feel relieved? But then she recalled Landon's sly grin, his unsubtle digs about mixing business and pleasure, and the envelope she'd just witnessed. With a clarity she didn't expect, Sarah understood that Landon was bent on more than just rumor-mongering. He was undermining the negotiations at a fundamental level, and Jordan was about to walk into that trap alone. The taxi pulled up to the airport drop-off curb. Sarah just sat there, gripping the seat. Her conscience fought her fear. Would she really abandon Jordan and the company, her company, to Landon's ruthless tactics? Was she content to slink back to Chicago, tail between her legs, while Landon destroyed everything Jordan had built? Her voice shook as she addressed the driver. "Can you wait a minute?" He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Sure. No rush if the meter's running." She stared at the bustling entrance to the terminal. People hurried with luggage, airline employees, guided travelers, everyone moving forward with their plans. Yet Sarah felt frozen, pinned by the realization she couldn't live with herself if she walked away from Charleston now. Swallowing a surge of anxiety, she knew her next decision would define not only her career, but also her integrity. Her phone buzzed, another call from Chloe that she ignored. Before she could lose her nerve, she told the driver, "Take me back to the Palmetto Inn, please." He frowned. "You sure? That's a solid 20 minutes back, and you'll still be on the meter." "Yes, I'm sure," she interrupted, heart pounding. "I need to stop someone from making a huge mistake." As the taxi sped away from the airport, Sarah dialed the hotel. With an uncharacteristic urgency, she requested to speak with Jordan Reyes if he hadn't already left for his next meeting. She had to warn him about Landon's plot, to show him she wasn't the cause of his downfall, but rather someone who still wanted to help him succeed. Even if it cost her pride, or meant facing the fury in his eyes again, she knew she had to go back. Because letting Landon win, letting Jordan crumble under false accusations, was a fate she refused to accept. Jordan felt ready to forfeit the deal. standing outside the palatial conference room. Sarah's departure had left him reeling, guilt gnawing at him for the vicious words he'd hurled. Worse, the board members of the targeted company demanded a final meeting that same afternoon to address concerns raised by the scandal. David Lee suggested Jordan might as well withdraw gracefully rather than face possible rejection. He stared at his reflection in a polished brass wall panel. The lines of his face, the rigid set of his mouth, he looked like a man losing the fight. Despite his outward assurance, the swirl of rumors about him and Sarah had bruised his image, and without Sarah's calm presence, the scattered documents and arguments felt heavier. Just when he was about to re-enter the conference alone, the elevator doors at the far end of the corridor opened. Sarah Adams rushed out, cheeks flushed, hair slightly disheveled, clutching her laptop bag. Jordan's heart lurched at the sight of her. "Sarah," he began, voice catching, "I thought you left." She hurried closer, her eyes ablaze with determination. "I was going to, but I saw Mark Landon giving an envelope to someone from the other negotiation team at the hotel lobby. That man didn't look like an official liaison. He seemed more like an inside contact." David Lee, overhearing, stepped forward. "Are you certain?" "Yes," Sarah insisted. "Mark Landon isn't just feeding rumors. He's bribing or blackmailing someone. If he's swaying the vote from within, we can still expose him." A sliver of hope and renewed drive sparked in Jordan's mind. He glanced at David Lee. "We need hard proof." Sarah nodded quickly, opening her laptop. "I managed to snap a photo on my phone before they parted. It's not conclusive proof of bribery, but it suggests suspicious contact. We might leverage that to push back against Landon, at least enough to force the other party to reconsider his credibility." Jordan exhaled, fresh energy thrumming through him. "All right, we confront them in the final session. We bring everything forward. If they care about integrity, they'll listen." He hesitated, turning to Sarah, voice heavy with remorse. "I owe you an apology. I lashed out because I was terrified of losing everything, my father's legacy, my own reputation. None of it was your fault." Her gaze softened. "We can talk about that later. Right now, let's save this deal, and your name." Buoyed by Sarah's unexpected return, Jordan squared his shoulders, leading the way into the conference room. Inside, the atmosphere was frosty. Representatives from the target board and their legal advisors exchanged tight smiles. Landon stood in a corner, arms crossed confidently. Jordan took a seat at the head of the table, David Lee on one side, Sarah on the other. The chairman cleared his throat. "Mr. Reyes, we appreciate your time, but recent developments have raised questions about whether this acquisition is prudent." Jordan glanced at Sarah, who discreetly readied her evidence. "I understand," he said, voice steady, "but let me clarify a few points, starting with the false story of my personal conduct, which I believe was planted by a competitor with unethical motives." He gestured to Sarah, who projected her phone image onto a small screen. "Earlier today, Mark Landon was seen in the hotel lobby exchanging envelopes with someone connected to this negotiation. Ms. Adams captured the moment, and while we can't prove the contents, we suspect it was a clandestine effort to undermine Reyes Holdings." A murmur of shock rippled through the attendees. Landon's confident demeanor faltered. "This is a baseless accusation," he growled. "You have no proof of wrongdoing, just a random photo." Sarah spoke up, voice controlled but firm. "What we do have is a pattern, false rumors, a timely scandal meant to sabotage these meetings, and now a secretive envelope exchange. We invite the board to draw their own conclusions." The tension rose, board members whispering among themselves. Jordan pressed his advantage. "Reyes Holdings stands by its integrity. We won't resort to underhanded tactics. If you value an honest partner, I suggest we refocus on the real merits of our proposal." Across the room, Landon's face reddened. The chairman glanced uneasily at him, then at the photograph. The tide was turning. Finally, the chairman announced they would deliberate in private, excusing everyone from the room. Jordan led Sarah out, heart pounding in his chest, certain that they'd just survived a crucial trial. But the final verdict still hung in the balance. Outside the conference room, Jordan and Sarah stood in tense silence as the board deliberated. David Lee paced up and down the corridor, clearly rattled, while Jordan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, jaw set. Sarah hovered near him, clutching her laptop bag like a shield. When the door finally opened, the board's representative emerged, looking grave. "We've taken into account the unusual circumstances," he began, voice echoing in the hallway. "We will proceed with negotiations under the original terms proposed by Reyes Holdings. We expect this to be completed swiftly, assuming no further controversies arise." A collective sigh of relief rippled through Jordan, David, and Sarah. Landon, standing behind them, scowled before stalking off without a word. For a moment, Jordan and Sarah simply stared at each other, processing the weight of what had just happened. They'd exposed Landon's dirty tactic enough to salvage the deal, and with that victory came a wave of relief so powerful it was almost dizzying. David shook Jordan's hand vigorously, then turned to Sarah, giving her a brief but genuine grin. "Unbelievable work," he said, voice full of gratitude. "You saw the clue and acted on it. I think it made all the difference." She managed a shaky smile. "I'm just glad I came back in time." David excused himself to call the legal department, leaving Jordan and Sarah in a brief oasis of privacy. Jordan's usually guarded eyes now shone with emotion. "You saved us," he murmured, stepping closer. "Saved me. Again." Sarah exhaled, her heart still pounding from the confrontation. "We saved each other. I thought I was doing the right thing by leaving, but then I realized—" She paused, choking up. "I couldn't let Landon get away with everything, and I couldn't leave you to fight alone." He cupped her cheek lightly, an uncharacteristic gesture of tenderness. "I'm sorry I blamed you for the rumors. I lashed out because, well, I was scared, ashamed. But none of it was your fault." There was a crack in his voice that spoke of genuine remorse. She swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. "When I saw you in that meeting, trying to salvage the deal, I knew I had to come back no matter what we faced." She let out a small laugh, half amused, half tearful. "Though I admit I never expected to be so front and center in a corporate showdown." A quiet chuckle escaped him. "Nor did I expect to form such a connection with the woman handling my digital archives." The hand on her cheek slipped to her shoulder, then trailed down to clasp her hand. "Sarah, I know these last few days have been intense, but you've shown me something I've been avoiding for years. The value of opening up, trusting someone else. You're more than a colleague, more than just an assistant." Heat flooded her cheeks, but joy fluttered in her chest. This was the man she'd caught glimpses of, a thoughtful, guarded soul who, in his own way, yearned for closeness. She pressed their intertwined hands gently. "I feel the same. Though the specifics of how, we can figure that out." He nodded, a faint, relieved smile curving his mouth. "Let's finalize the negotiations and get back to Chicago. We can't let a short-term scandal define us. But maybe," his voice softened, "maybe, after all this is done, we see where we really stand, on our terms." At that, Sarah's heart soared. The crisis was not entirely over. The acquisition still needed to be signed. Landon might attempt more sabotage, but the worst appeared behind them. She felt a surge of possibility, a renewed sense that from chaos could emerge something beautiful and real. As Jordan gently brushed his thumb across her knuckles, She allowed herself to believe they had indeed earned a moment of triumph, both as partners in business and, just maybe, as something more. The signing of the acquisition agreement occurred the following morning in a subdued but momentous ceremony. Only a handful of executives were present: Jordan, David Lee, and a few key members from the target company's leadership. While the mood was cordial, a lingering tension underscored that Mark Landon's interference had nearly derailed everything. Sarah hovered on the periphery, ensuring every digital file matched the newly signed paper contracts. She felt a swell of pride each time Jordan or David acknowledged her behind-the-scenes contributions. Even the other side's representatives looked at her with newfound respect, as though they recognized how this seemingly quiet woman had helped preserve the deal. Once the final signatures were in place, there was a round of subdued applause. Jordan shook hands with the target company's CEO, sealing the partnership Reyes Holdings had worked so hard to secure. David offered Sarah a small grin, murmuring, "You did it," and she felt the warmth of that validation spread through her chest, dispelling the heaviness of the previous days. Afterward, Jordan and Sarah found themselves in a quieter corridor outside the hotel's meeting rooms. He removed his jacket, draping it over an arm, exhaling deeply. "I have to contact our Chicago offices to confirm all the final details. But at least the worst is over," she nodded, still riding the adrenaline. "We pulled it off, despite Landon, despite the scandal, despite everything." He studied her, expression softening. "And you stood by me, even when I pushed you away." Her cheeks warmed under his attention. "You're not the only one with something to lose," she said gently. "I may not have a corporation on my shoulders, but I do have my own aspirations and moral compass. And I couldn't let you face it alone." Jordan let out a small, grateful laugh. "We make a good team, you know." Then he gestured for her to follow him. "Come on, let's at least enjoy a moment in our suite before reporters or more questions try to claim our time." Once back in the Magnolia Suite, the aftermath of documents and suitcases scattered about reminded Sarah how much had happened in a handful of days. She couldn't help feeling different, more alive, more confident. A swirl of possibilities stretched before her. Jordan set his briefcase on the dining table. "We'll head back to Chicago soon. For now, consider this phase complete." She nodded, then placed a hand lightly on the back of one of the chairs. "What about Landon? He may face repercussions for what he did, right?" "He will," Jordan answered firmly. "His reputation is in tatters. Word spreads fast in business circles, especially about underhanded methods. Let him deal with the fallout. Our priority now is to move forward." A pause. "And there's still us." He hesitated, as if searching for the right words. "We're in a new place, aren't we?" Sarah felt her heart skip. "We are." She wasn't quite sure what that entailed in the practical sense, but her mind flashed to the gentle moments on the terrace, the conversations and near confessions. "Once we're back in Chicago, how do we handle everything?" He stepped closer, his presence radiating warmth. "We can start by acknowledging we're more than colleagues. I'd like to be honest about that, with each other at least. We don't have to announce it to the whole office just yet, but I won't deny it either." She breathed in relief. "That sounds fair. I'm not ashamed of what we've shared, but I'd prefer we define it on our own terms first." He lightly brushed his fingers against hers in a tender, unspoken promise. "Exactly. After all we've weathered here, I think we deserve a chance to figure this out at our own pace." Their conversation quieted, but a current of warmth vibrated between them. Sarah realized that what happened next was theirs to shape. Charleston had tested them in every way, personally, professionally, and now they were free to discover what awaited them once the suitcases were packed and the final contract was sealed. She could still feel the lingering tension that asked, Can we blend our worlds without losing ourselves? Yet something told her they would manage, just as they had so far, together and on their own terms. On their last afternoon in Charleston, the hotel lobby bustled with conference attendees checking out. After the intense days of negotiations and drama, Sarah found it oddly peaceful to watch the flurry of departures, each person heading back to their routine. She stood by a side window, gazing at the sunlight glinting off parked cars as she waited for Jordan to settle the final billing. Her phone buzzed. A message from Chloe. Heard the deal went through. You're amazing. Can't wait to hear every detail. Sarah smiled, typing a quick reply. Headed home soon. We'll fill you in. It's been life-changing. A wry laugh escaped her as she sent the text. Life-changing felt like an understatement. She'd come to Charleston expecting to assist with digital archives. Instead, she had faced sabotage, scandal, and a forced closeness to a man she'd once perceived as unreachable. Now she was returning to Chicago with more than just a professional victory. She carried a new sense of courage and possibility. Jordan approached, handing her a printout of their checkout details. Mr. Abernathy insisted on comping multiple nights because of the booking mix-up and all the inconvenience. Sarah shook her head in mild amusement. I suppose that's the least he could do. She glanced around the lobby, nostalgia already blooming in her chest for the strange adventure this place had brought her. They stepped outside to wait for the car. A balmy breeze ruffled Sarah's hair, carrying the scents of magnolia blossoms from the courtyard gardens. Jordan stood beside her, checking messages on his phone. Then, as if sensing her gaze, he looked up with a faint, rueful smile. I'm going to miss this place. In a way, even with all the chaos, Charleston grows on you. Sarah couldn't argue. She thought of the quiet terrace conversations, the city's pastel facades, and the soulful architecture she'd sketched in her notebook. Me too, she admitted softly, though next time, maybe we can come without the looming threat of a corporate meltdown. His eyes gleamed with a gentle humor. Absolutely. And maybe then, you'll actually get a room of your own. A pause. And then more quietly, at least for starters. Heat blossomed in her cheeks, but she grinned, feeling more at ease with his teasing. We'll see, she murmured, her heart fluttering at the suggestion of a future trip, one that wasn't overshadowed by boardroom politics. Their car arrived, and the driver placed their luggage in the trunk. Sarah slid into the back seat, Jordan following suit. As the vehicle pulled away from the Palmetto Inn, she glimpsed her reflection in the window, lips curved in a small, content smile. For all the stress, Charleston had transformed her. The woman heading back to Chicago wasn't the same timid archivist who'd boarded Jordan's private jet days ago. Jordan's phone rang. David Lee, no doubt finalizing more details of the successful acquisition. Sarah tuned out the business chatter, letting her mind drift over all that had transpired. She felt a quiet thrill at the realization that once they returned to Chicago, her role in Reyes Holdings might shift. Jordan had recognized her capabilities. Perhaps the company would see her in a different light now. Before long, they arrived at the small private airstrip. The sleek jet awaited. As they settled into their seats inside, Sarah smoothed her skirt, feeling a wave of nerves. The flight home offered a chance to decompress and also face what came next. She glanced at Jordan buckling in across from her, and their eyes locked. He gave her a reassuring nod. Ready? She inhaled, then exhaled slowly. Yes, she said, the word resonating beyond just the flight. She was ready to return, ready to stand by him, and ready to acknowledge the bond they had forged amid southern nights and high-stakes deals. Whatever awaited them in Chicago, skeptical co-workers, a swirl of rumors, or even new opportunities, She felt a surging determination to meet it head-on. The jet's engines roared to life, carrying them skyward. Sarah peered through the window at the receding Charleston skyline, her heart a blend of gratitude and expectation. They were leaving one stage behind, but she sensed that the real journey, for both her and Jordan, was only just beginning. Touching down in Chicago felt strangely comforting to Sarah, even though the city's brisk wind nipped at her face the moment she stepped off Jordan's private jet. She pulled her coat tighter, breathing in the familiar scent of lake-cooled air. Jordan followed, phone in hand, scanning texts from David Lee about the transition steps for their newly acquired company. Despite the scattered bustle on the tarmac, there was a sense of homecoming, a calmer certainty than when they'd first flown out. A black company car whisked them from the private airfield to the headquarters of Reyes Holdings. As they approached the towering glass structure, Sarah's heart fluttered with anticipation. This was the same building she'd left mere days ago, feeling timid and overshadowed. Now she returned, carrying a quiet confidence that had been tested in Charleston's crucible. Inside the lobby, employees milled about with their usual briskness, but Sarah detected subtle changes in how some regarded her. A few nodded in recognition, even admiration. Word of her pivotal role in the acquisition must have spread. She offered polite smiles back, hoping she didn't look as anxious as she felt. They rode the elevator to the executive floor, side by side. The silence hummed with a new undercurrent, awareness of their changed dynamic. Jordan cleared his throat. "We'll hold a meeting with department heads later. They'll want an overview of the new division's integration plan." She gave a tight nod, fiddling with the strap of her tote bag. "I'll gather the digital handover documents, then join you." The doors opened, and before Sarah could step out, Chloe appeared in the hallway. "Welcome back," she practically squealed, throwing her arms around Sarah. "How was Charleston? I heard you were incredible." Heat crept up Sarah's cheeks at the public display. "It was intense," she managed, returning the hug. Over Chloe's shoulder, she caught Jordan's fleeting amusement. He gave Sarah a polite nod, then continued to his office, giving the two friends a moment. Chloe pulled back, her voice dropping conspiratorially. "So is it true what everyone's saying? You saved the whole negotiation. What happened with that rumor about you two?" She motioned in the direction Jordan had gone. Sarah's stomach knotted. "Let's just say it was messy. But the important part is, the deal closed and everything's fine now." She didn't offer more detail, unwilling to fan the gossip. They strolled together toward the records area. Chloe peppered her with questions about Charleston's architecture, the conference setting, even the local cuisine. Sarah answered in broad strokes, grateful that Chloe didn't pry too deeply into personal details. Finally, her friend gave a teasing grin. "I can't believe you spent almost a week traveling with Jordan Reyes. It's like something out of a boardroom fairy tale, or a stressful corporate drama," Sarah joked dryly, though her heart fluttered recalling those tender moments in the Magnolia Suite. "Look, I need to get back to work. This new acquisition is going to demand a ton of digital integration." With that, she escaped to her desk, flipping open her laptop. The familiarity of spreadsheets and archived documents calmed her. Still, the memory of Jordan's expression when they'd quietly acknowledged their bond lingered in her mind. Returning to her routine felt like slipping on an old coat. Comfortable, yet not quite the same. She had changed. Their relationship, though undefined, wasn't just her imagination. Later that afternoon, Jordan called a briefing in the main conference room. Sarah arrived early, ensuring all the data was prepped for the projector. Executives filed in, greeting her with newfound respect. Just before the meeting began, David Lee offered a small nod of approval, muttering, "Glad you're on the team, Sarah." Those simple words ignited a swell of pride in her chest. Jordan's presentation was concise yet forceful. He detailed how the newly acquired division would fold into Reyes Holdings' existing structure. Throughout, he acknowledged Sarah's work, calling her instrumental in crucial moments. Murmurs spread among the gathered staff, and Sarah detected a wave of acceptance that warmed her. Leaving the conference room, she felt the buzz of co-workers' curiosity, some simply curious about her new responsibilities, others undoubtedly speculating about what exactly had transpired in Charleston. As she passed the corridor leading to the CEO's office, she glimpsed Jordan waiting. He met her gaze with a slight, private smile. She offered a subtle nod in return, her heartbeat quickening. Yes, she had come home to the same building, but nothing was truly the same. A door had opened, and she was determined never again to hide behind safe boundaries. A week later, whispers about Sarah's expanded role began circulating through the halls of Reyes Holdings. It started with an internal email from David Lee congratulating her on a provisional strategic appointment that acknowledged her exceptional contributions in Charleston. At first, she brushed it off as a courtesy, but as the days passed, more and more people treated her like someone with actual authority, not just the quiet archivist. That shift became tangible one Monday morning when Jordan convened a special senior team meeting. Sarah arrived and found herself seated at the conference table alongside department heads and division managers, people she usually only supplied files to. She scanned the room, feeling a burst of nerves. But Jordan's calm acknowledgement steadied her. He addressed the group in his characteristic measured tone. "I want everyone here to understand the importance of our new acquisition and how it impacts our corporate roadmap. Ms. Adams," he gestured to Sarah, "has proven indispensable to our success. Effective immediately, she will move into a consultancy role, advising on strategic initiatives tied to our archival and data frameworks." A hush settled. Sarah's heart pounded. There it was, her official promotion. Though unorthodox, it made sense after her performance in Charleston. She glanced at David Lee, who gave an approving nod, and Chloe, sitting off to the side, silently cheered. As the meeting progressed, one member of the board cleared his throat. "I'd like to address any concerns about conflicts of interest," he said, clearly referencing the rumors that had circulated. "Mr. Reyes, are we sure this move is based purely on merit?" Sarah felt her stomach tense. This was exactly the scrutiny she'd dreaded. Jordan, however, remained composed. "Absolutely. Mrs. Adams's insights were critical in sealing the Charleston deal. Her track record speaks for itself." His gaze shifted, but he didn't waver. "I assure you, her capabilities outweigh any personal speculation." Some board members exchanged glances, but no one openly objected further. She sensed a collective acceptance, or at least a willingness to move on. When the meeting ended, she felt light-headed with relief. Later that day, Jordan invited her to a smaller debrief in his office. She entered to find him scanning spreadsheets on his computer, brow creased. "We're finalizing the timeline for integrating the new division," he explained. "I'd like your input on how to structure the digital merges. But first," he paused, standing to close the office door. "Congratulations, Sarah. This is overdue. I should have recognized your skill set sooner." She managed a tight smile, acutely aware they were alone. "Thank you. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it." He motioned to a seat. "I know there's talk among the board about favoritism. The best way to silence that is to excel in this new role, and I have no doubt you will." His tone was steady, but his gaze carried warmth that rattled her composure. She nodded, shifting in the chair. "I appreciate your confidence. It means a lot." A flicker of a smile touched his mouth. "It's well earned. The team is already benefiting from your meticulous eye. While we're on the subject," his voice dropped, "I want you to know that, despite the rumors, we did nothing wrong. And going forward, how we define our relationship is ours to decide, not the board's. Her pulse kicked up. That's exactly how I feel. But for now, maybe we keep it professional in the office and see how it evolves. He exhaled, relief evident. Agreed. For the next hour, they reviewed spreadsheets, comparing data sets that would merge Reyes Holdings' existing archives with the newly acquired files. Occasionally, their hands brushed as they reached for the same document, each time sending a little spark through Sarah. Still, she maintained her composure, grateful for the sense of mutual respect anchoring them. Stepping out of Jordan's office afterward, she noticed a new energy coursing through her veins. She was no longer a timid background figure, but a recognized strategic consultant, and as she passed her old cubicle, she realized she probably wouldn't be returning to it. A new corner of the corporate world had opened up, one where her voice mattered. Inwardly, she smiled, deciding she was ready to handle the challenges waiting just around the corner. True to her new title of Consultant on Strategic Initiatives, Sarah found herself juggling responsibilities that stretched beyond digital archives. She now attended interdepartmental meetings, helping shape the future direction of Reyes Holdings. Each day, she built spreadsheets that combined financial forecasts with intangible insights gleaned from her careful examination of data patterns. Colleagues who once overlooked her now brought questions, seeking her perspective. One crisp afternoon, she led a briefing on the synergy plan for the newly acquired Charleston division. A small group of department managers gathered in a glass-walled conference room. Nerves flared in Sarah's chest as she stepped to the front. This was the first time she'd addressed multiple senior staff as an authority figure. She began, voice even despite the hammering of her heart. Our priority is ensuring minimal downtime as we integrate their systems with ours. We have a window of about 6 weeks to fully align their digital archives and operational software. I've prepared an outline of tasks and deadlines. Tapping her laptop, she projected an organized Gantt chart onto the screen. Several managers leaned forward, nodding appreciatively. Throughout the session, she fielded questions confidently, drawing on her intimate knowledge of data structures. Where she once might have wilted under scrutiny, she stood poised, noticing some managers scribbling notes while others shot her looks of respect. Even the occasional challenge, but how do we maintain data integrity amid so many changes? She answered with practiced clarity. Jordan quietly joined the meeting halfway through. He settled into a seat along the side, arms folded, listening intently. Sarah's pulse kicked up at his presence, but she forced herself to remain focused. Yet, whenever she glanced in his direction, he gave a barely perceptible nod, wordlessly encouraging her. When the briefing ended, the managers trickled out, offering compliments. Sarah exhaled, allowing the rush of relief to flood her. She began packing up her laptop when Jordan rose and approached. "You handled that perfectly," he said quietly, a note of pride in his voice. "Any trace of nerves didn't show at all." She let out a small laugh. "I was terrified, to be honest, but everything I learned in Charleston taught me to stand my ground." He nodded, lingering for a moment as if wanting to say more. "After hours, can we catch up in my office? I have a few more items to discuss regarding your role." Sarah's heart fluttered. "Sure," she agreed, carefully tucking her laptop into its case. Later that evening, the building grew quiet as most employees headed home. Sarah made her way to Jordan's top-floor office. With the blinds drawn, the city lights twinkled through the windows. Soft lamplight illuminated the large desk and shelves lined with business awards and family photographs. She recognized one of Jordan's father, the same man whose memory Jordan so closely guarded. He gestured for her to sit. "I wanted to say again how proud I am of your transition. You've proven yourself, and it's only been a week since we got back." A smile tugged at her lips, warmth blossoming in her chest. Thank you. It's been a lot to absorb. He placed a stack of papers aside. Yes, but you've handled it. And about us, he trailed off, carefully choosing words. I'm ready to be open with the necessary people, but I don't want you to feel pressured. The rumors might flare again once folks see we're more than just co-workers, Sarah swallowed, recalling how vicious the gossip could be. I appreciate that you're willing to face it. I don't want to hide. But let's proceed thoughtfully, so neither of us is blindsided. She paused, eyes flicking to the photograph of Jordan's father. You said once that you kept parts of yourself locked away. We can do this on our own terms, piece by piece. Jordan nodded, relief in his voice. Thank you. This time, it'll be on our schedule, not fueled by scandal or corporate crises. At that, he moved around the desk, gently brushing his fingers across her shoulder. She turned and let him draw her into a careful embrace. While the city sparkled behind them, she closed her eyes, resting her head on his chest. Yes, they still had to navigate office culture, family expectations, and the responsibilities of two ambitious professionals. But in that moment, all she felt was the reassuring thud of his heart, reminding her that something genuine and hopeful had taken root, and that they were free to let it grow in the way they both chose. Fresh confidence radiated from Sarah each morning as she juggled her new position's demands, yet there was an unspoken yearning that had followed her from Charleston, her quiet dream of sharing her artwork more openly. Chloe, ever the enthusiastic friend, had nudged her more than once since the trip. Why not show your sketches at a local gallery or community event, she'd say. You've obviously got an eye for detail that's wasted just living in your notebook. One afternoon, while finalizing an integration plan on her office computer, Sarah noticed an email flyer from a small local venue, the Carl Hammer Gallery, announcing an open call for emerging artists. She reread the email 3 times, excitement rising within her. Could she actually submit her Charleston sketches? Her heart pounded at the thought of letting strangers evaluate her drawings, but the memory of that city's colorful houses and her moments on the Magnolia Suites terrace filled her with a longing to share them. Summoning her nerve, she drafted an email to the gallery's coordinator, attaching scanned images of 3 pieces: a Charleston skyline at dusk, a Rainbow Row scene near the hotel, and a more abstract sketch capturing the swirl of city lights reflected on wet cobblestones. The act of hitting send left her both giddy and terrified. But she recalled Jordan's gentle urging to show the parts of herself she once kept locked away. Days later, while she sat in a cafe near the Reyes Holdings building, an email from Carl Hammer Gallery appeared in her inbox. We're impressed by your perspective and would love to feature your sketches in our upcoming group show. Sarah nearly spilled her coffee in excitement. She called Chloe, who squealed with delight. Yes, I knew it. This is what you deserve. After her shift that day, Sarah made her way to Jordan's office, wanting to share the news. His door was open, and he stood by the window, gazing out at the Chicago skyline. He turned, a smile flashing across his face as she entered. Congratulations, he said, as if already sensing her excitement. Her eyebrows rose. How did you know? He motioned to his computer screen. Chloe sent me a cryptic email that you had big art news. I was hoping you'd fill in the blanks. Beaming, she explained the gallery invite. They want to display 3 of my Charleston sketches next month, along with other local artists. Jordan's features softened. That's wonderful, Sarah. I'm thrilled for you. She hesitated. I'm nervous too. I've never put my personal work on display. What if no one likes it? What if the critics tear it apart? His expression grew earnest. Art isn't about universal approval. It's about expressing something uniquely you. If Charleston taught us anything, it's that stepping beyond our comfort zone can lead to remarkable outcomes. Warmth spread through her. That's true, she murmured. Still, it's scary to put yourself out there. Jordan closed the gap between them, resting a reassuring hand on her arm. Look at what you accomplished in Charleston. You faced sabotage, rumors, and a high-stakes negotiation, and you emerged stronger, showing your sketches. This will be far less terrifying, I promise. She smiled, letting the encouragement soothe her nerves. You might be right. Then, a flicker of mischief. You'll come, won't you, to the exhibit? A grin curved his lips. I'd be honored. Just name the date. Leaving his office, she felt weightless, as though her life was opening up in multiple dimensions at once. New responsibilities at Reyes Holdings, a blossoming relationship with Jordan, and now a chance to share her art publicly. Each piece had once felt impossible, too large a risk, but now the steps felt like a natural progression from the quiet archivist she once was to the woman stepping fully into her own light. As she walked down the hallway, Chloe intercepted her, eyes gleaming. I heard, big news, Ms. Artist. Don't worry, I'm already planning to invite the entire floor to your debut. Sarah laughed, a genuine, joyous sound she hardly recognized in herself. For once, she didn't fear the attention. She simply savored the excitement, because she had discovered that being truly seen, by Jordan, by friends, and now by an art community, was not a threat to her stability. It was the doorway to a richer, more fulfilling life than she'd ever let herself dream. Saturday arrived with the crisp sunshine reflecting off Chicago's steel and glass. It was a rare day off for both Sarah and Jordan, who had decided rather spontaneously to catch a morning flight back to Charleston for a weekend trip. This time, there were no thick contract binders, no board meetings, no overshadowing business conference, just them. They breezed through the private terminal, but instead of the company jet, Jordan had opted for commercial first-class tickets, an attempt, he said, to keep it low-key. Sarah grinned at the irony. A commercial flight was still more luxurious than she was accustomed to, yet it felt far more relaxed than their tense corporate travel before. You know, Jordan remarked once they were settled into their seats, we might actually get separate rooms at the Palmetto Inn this time. She raised an amused eyebrow. But will we end up using them? A playful wink lit her eyes, recalling his earlier joke back in Charleston. A part of her felt bold, teased by the newfound honesty between them. His light laugh held genuine delight. Let's see how the weekend unfolds, he replied, leaning closer until his warmth brushed her shoulder. In under 2 hours, they touched down in Charleston's balmy air. The city greeted them with its familiar pastel facades, trailing vines, and slow-rolling accents. Yet what had once been a maelstrom of corporate stress felt different now, a place resonating with memories of midnight talks on a hotel terrace, confessions under stars, and a near-disastrous scandal that had somehow bound them closer rather than tearing them apart. Walking through the lobby of the Palmetto Inn, Mr. Abernathy greeted them with a knowing, relieved smile. "Welcome back, Mr. Reyes, Ms. Adams." He paused. "We do have 2 suites booked, but the Magnolia Suite is also available, just in case." His eyes twinkled with gentle humor. Sarah laughed softly. "That's tempting, Mr. Abernathy, but let's give someone else a shot at that suite, shall we?" A wink to Jordan made the manager chuckle in return. They checked into separate rooms on the same floor. True to their agreement, they were allowing their closeness to develop naturally outside the pressure cooker of a shared suite. As evening approached, Jordan surprised Sarah with a stroll down the famous Rainbow Row, those historic Georgian houses with bright facades that had once captivated her sketchbook. Arm in arm, they lingered, soaking in the sunset's pastel glow mirrored in the colors of the buildings. "Remember when I first saw you drawing this exact street from the hotel terrace?" Jordan murmured, halting by a gate framed with climbing jasmine. "You looked so peaceful, caught in your own world." She nodded, letting the sweet floral scent wash over her. I didn't realize you were paying attention. I felt invisible most of the time back then. He brushed a lock of hair from her face. No, you were just waiting to be truly seen, even if you didn't know it. His voice was gentle, laced with affection. Since then, you've shown me it's okay to let someone in. Emotion stirred in her chest, recalling how both of them had worn protective armor for so long. So have you, she whispered, stepping closer. For a moment, they stood in silence, the warm Charleston air enveloping them. Then, softly, Jordan leaned in and pressed his lips to hers, a tender yet certain gesture that spoke of the road they'd traveled to get here. Her heart quickened as she kissed him back, letting all the lingering tension and unspoken hopes flow into that moment of connection. When they finally parted, her cheeks flushed with warmth, and she felt his breath hitch. Standing beneath an old street lamp, they exchanged a look that promised whatever came next, back in Chicago or elsewhere, they would face it together. The next day, they'd fly home, returning to busy schedules and intertwined responsibilities at Reyes Holdings. But tonight, in Charleston, they walked hand in hand along the cobblestone streets, celebrating the close of one chapter and the beginning of another, where once Charleston had been the stage for a challenging test of wills and hearts, it now became the quiet, soulful backdrop of a conscious choice. They were more than CEO and assistant, more than colleagues bound by urgent contracts. They were two people daring to claim something deeper. And as they meandered through the old city, laughter interlaced with the soft sound of distant jazz, they reveled in the sweet certainty that their once unexpected sweet had led to a future of limitless possibilities, waiting for them to write the next page together. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.